She treated her like a nuisance, a weight, a discomfort that simply existed there, breathing the same air, occupying the same space. Even though he didn't say it in so many words, his eyes said it. His cold gestures screamed. His silence was cutting, and his contempt was daily. Donna Emilia had been living in her son's house since her husband's death, a small room at the back of the yard. Few pieces of furniture, an old armchair, and the memories that insisted on not letting her sleep at night. Than the asylum she was almost sent to. Better than complete oblivion. Camilla, the daughter-in-law, never made any effort to hide her irritation. Every step the mother-in-law took inside the house seemed to bother her. Every time the old woman coughed or let the kettle whistle for a second too long, she got scolded. Do you really need to touch everything? Don't touch the stove, Mrs. Emilia. You'll end up knocking everything over. Stay in your corner, please. And Emilia stayed. She was the kind of woman who had cried too much to even try to fight. I had lost much more than I had gained in life, and so he kept quiet. There was a silence in his eyes that hid pain that no one ever bothered to ask about. Not even his own son. He was always too busy trying to please his wife and forgetting the woman who brought him into the world. But Emilia held no grudge. I kept memories and a secret that, if revealed, could destroy everything, or maybe save someone. That her mother-in-law was just a boring, outdated old woman, someone that life left behind, that just survived without making a difference. Little did she know that this woman had faced death head-on once, and that I would do it again if I had to. What Camilla also didn't know, it was that life was about to turn upside down. That in just a few hours, everything she valued most would be put at risk, and the only person capable of preventing a tragedy, it was precisely who she. Some say that true love is revealed in the darkest moments, and that true strength is not in shouting, but in silent gestures. Camilla would find this out the hard way, and more unexpected. That woman she despised, I was about to prove that some scars are actually invisible medals, and that behind trembling hands and deep wrinkles, there may dwell a courage that time has never been able to erase. That day everything changed, and the story that seemed sad, and it became one of the most impactful lessons that family would never forget. Because sometimes you have to lose your footing to understand who is really there to support you. And that day, Camilla would discover, too late or not, that she had judged the wrong person, and the woman she ignored the most. She was the only one who could save what she loved most in life. Donna Emilia, 72 years old, lived in a small room at the back of her son's house. Small, simple, silent, was left after a lifetime of battles. After her husband left suddenly without saying goodbye, she became dependent on the couple's goodwill for a place to live. But goodwill was something that Camilla, his daughter-in-law, seemed to be unfamiliar with. Camilla tolerated her, not out of love, not out of respect, but out of obligation, just because the husband insisted. And yet, he made it clear in every gesture, in every look. Emilia was not welcome. She grumbled when her mother-in-law sat at the table. He was blowing when he was walking around the house. I rolled my eyes when I heard his hoarse voice trying to make conversation. You could at least try to be helpful, right? He said as he washed the dishes angrily. Just lying down doesn't help anyone. Camilla was bothered by everything. With the old clothes that Amelia wore, with the radio playing low in the late afternoon, with the fennel tea she made every day at 5 in the afternoon, the same one she made with her husband when he was still alive. The smell, which once signified love and routine, was now a source of criticism. But Amelia, he remained silent, always silent, as if he were carrying on his shoulders not only his age, but an invisible baggage that weighed more than any suitcase. There was a contained sadness in her eyes, like someone who had grown accustomed to being ignored, like someone who has loved too much and lost. She didn't fight back. He didn't raise his voice. I didn't charge a little. Just a smile that seemed more like an apology to the world for still being here. A request for permission to exist. But there was something about Amelia that no one saw. Something that not even his son knew. A detail buried in time, like a photograph hidden at the bottom of a drawer that no one opens anymore. A secret kept for over 40 years. Something that shaped your life, your way of loving, of fearing, and mainly to protect. Camilla, empathy, young, impatient, and no time for as a woman with a past. For her, Amelia was just an outdated lady, someone that time forgot, that just took up space without any real use. But the truth is that fragile and silent woman had already faced things that Camilla would not even be able to imagine. Pain, loss, guilt, and a promise. A promise made in an empty cemetery on a cold morning decades ago, that, if necessary, she would give her life for a second chance. And that chance was closer than anyone could have predicted, because fate, silent and implacable, was already preparing the next scene, a twist that would change everything. A fire that wouldn't just burn walls, but certainties, prejudices, and masks. Camilla was about to learn the hard, life-changing way that not every heroine wears a cape. Some wear worn-out slippers, flowery dresses, and carry invisible scars. And that love, true love, can be hidden even in the most despised silence. Amelia's story was not just that of an elderly woman living in the back of a house. It was the story of a woman who waited her whole life to be heard, and when he finally spoke, everything changed. It all started on a random Friday, one of those afternoons that seem ordinary, but without warning, they turned the world upside down. The sky was clear, the wind was light, and the silence of the neighborhood gave a false impression of peace. Camilla was late. She had appointments downtown, bills to settle, deadlines to meet. In a rush, he left little Luca, just 4 years old, in the care of Donna Emilia, something he avoided at all costs. "It's just for today. I'll be back soon," he murmured, without even looking his mother-in-law in the eye. He slammed the door and left, as if he just wanted to get rid of a burden. In Camilla's mind, Amelia was too fragile, too slow, too inattentive, but that day she had no other choice. Meanwhile, in the backyard, Luca played with rocks and leaves, making up stories about dragons and castles. Donna Emilia watched him affectionately, sitting in her wicker chair. She was smiling, but there was something in her eyes, an old, almost forgotten glow, as if seeing her grandson was a way of reconnecting with someone from the past, until a sound cut through the air. Subtle at first, then a louder crack, the smell, the heat, the smoke. Amelia got up with difficulty. He walked with quick, shaky steps to the front of the house. Bedroom curtains were on fire. Luca? He screamed, panic seizing his body like lightning. There was no time to think. There was no logic or fear that could stop her. She ran. He entered the house engulfed in smoke, his eyes burning, his heart racing. With each step, old memories came back. Another room, another fire, another son. But now she would have the chance she never had. Luca was huddled in the corner, coughing, his eyes wet with despair. "Come with Grandma, my love." Took him in her arms and wrapped her body around him, protected him from the flames, from the smoke, from fate. And he left with his grandson pressed against his chest, even as the flames kissed his skin mercilessly. When the firefighters arrived, the two were already outside, Luca conscious, Emilia fallen beside him, her arms singed and her back scarred by burns. The hospital was a blur of voices, sirens, and running around. Camilla arrived minutes later, her heart racing and her face in shock. Seeing her son alive made her break down. But when she looked at her mother-in-law's bed, everything inside her turned over. Donna Emilia was there, lying down, bandaged, with a wounded body but a serene expression. Camilla couldn't understand. I couldn't process it. The woman she spent years ignoring, who mistreated, who demeaned, who made a point of distancing. He had risked his own life for Luca, without hesitation, without thinking twice, without caring that about hurt or faced with the silent sacrifice her mother-in-law had made. For the first time, Camilla really looked at her, not as a nuisance, not as a burden, but as someone who carried an invisible force, a courage she never imagined existed. And then something changed inside her. A discomfort grew in his chest. Guilt? Shame? Gratitude? Maybe it was all of these things at the same time, but Camilla didn't know yet. What had happened was just the beginning, deeper, just the surface of Mrs. Emilia. He still carried a secret, one that would change everything Camilla believed about herself. And that flame that destroyed the room, he was about to illuminate truths that had remained in the shadows for more than 4 decades. The room was silent. Only the rhythmic sound of the machines filled the air, as if each beep was a reminder that time was still ticking, that her heart was still beating. Camilla, motionless, held her mother-in-law's bandaged hand, the hands she so often avoided touching, the fragile, burned hands, the same ones who, days before, had protected her son from the flames with the strength of a love she never knew how to recognize. She cried, not a loud cry, not a desperate cry. It was a silent, restrained cry, as if, in that moment, she understood for the first time the magnitude of the injustice she had committed all those years ago. And then, with a weak, almost whispered voice, Emilia opened her eyes. "Camilla, I'm here," he replied, holding back tears. There was a pause, long, heavy, until Camilla, in a fit of pain and regret, broke down. "Why did you do this? Even after everything I said? How I treated you? After all the slights, why?" Emilia looked at her tenderly. There was no judgment in his eyes, not even anger. He's not a mage. There was only pain, and a silent love that never needed words to exist. And then her voice, scratched by smoke, age, and years of suppressed silence. "Lost a she child answered once," Camilla froze. I swore to myself that if I had a second chance, I would never let another mother feel that pain. Not if I could help it. That sentence broke something inside her. For a moment, Camila didn't know if she was still breathing. His gaze went blank. His mind wandered, trying to process each word. It was there that Amelia told, with pauses, with tears, like someone reliving a nightmare that never stopped happening, even as the years passed. Simple family trip. The river was calm. It seemed harmless. The eldest son, Daniel, played at the water's edge, laughed, jumped. She turned her back for seconds, just seconds. And when he looked again, he was no longer there. Time has stopped. The world has lost its sound. The water, which once seemed crystal clear, became a silent monster. She dove in. He shouted. She dragged herself along the bank with her hands cut, her dress heavy, her chest in agony. But it was too late. A part of Amelia also sank never to return. "I never forgave myself, Camila," she said, her voice trembling. "Not for a day. I thought, if I had looked, if I had held, if I had stayed. Since then, living has become survival. Waking up was punishment. Sleeping was torture. The pain became routine. Guilt turned into shadow, and hope disappeared. Until, years later, Luca was born. Small, fragile, with the same sparkle in his eyes that Daniel had. Tripping watching over his Luca own run around the house, smiling with dimples, was like looking into a mirror of the past. But instead of pain, she saw an opportunity there, a chance to protect, to be present, to do it right. Even if, to do so, she had to endure the contempt of a daughter-in-law who saw her as a nuisance. Even if his presence was tolerated only out of obligation. Even though no one knew how much that boy meant to her. "I knew you didn't want me here, and I understood, because I became a tired woman. But Luca was like God had given me a second chance." Camila couldn't hold back her tears any longer. She shrank back in her chair. She felt ashamed of herself. Shame for the times he judged, pointed, and disdained. For the harsh words, through the slammed doors, for cruel indifference. Now it all made sense. Every distant look from Amelia, every silent gesture of care. Each time she approached Luca with a shy affection, as if asking permission to living with a woman Camila she never really knew. A woman marked by tragedy, guided by a regret that no one saw, and for a love that overcame any pain. And she had wasted so much time. Now there in the hospital, in front of a woman who gave everything she had to save what she loved most, Camila understood. There are people who love in silence, that protect even when they are despised, who forgive without ever hearing an apology. Amelia was one of those people, her the pain of loss carried within, and yet he chose to offer love when he had every reason to shut down. And it was in that room, between tears and bandages, that Camila, for the first time, saw her mother-in-law as she really was, not just any old lady, not a bother, but a survivor, a mother, a grandmother, an invisible heroine, a woman who suffered in silence, but saved with courage. And although it was too late to change the past, there was still time to write a new chapter. If she had left that hospital as herself, what was once impatience was now caution. What was once contempt was now gratitude. And what she once called a boring old woman, she now understood as a silent warrior. Donna Emilia, for many, was just another lady, someone whom time has taken to the depths of oblivion. But for Camila, she was now the living portrait of an ancient pain, of a love without limits. and a courage that only time and suffering can teach. Camilla no longer saw of weakness, saw as marks of resistance. Every line on his face told a story no one ever wanted to hear. A story of losses that cannot be erased, of silences that scream, of promises made on the verge of guilt. Amelia had lost a son, and he spent his life trying to redeem himself from the world, even though he owed nothing to anyone. She turned her pain into care, and even though she was ignored, she continued to love. Today, Camilla sees her with different eyes of a daughter, with the eyes of someone who understood, even if late, that loving someone also means recognizing the battles they have faced. Now, Camilla prepares tea at 5 in the afternoon, the same tea that you so despised. He makes a point of sitting down with Amelia, listening to her stories, asking her what she likes, what she feels, and each answer comes with a small bridge that connects the past to the present. Each gesture is a brick in the reconstruction of a bond that seemed irreparable. And Luca? Luca, the boy with lively eyes and infinite curiosity, became the link between two women who, for a long time, walked in separate worlds. He doesn't understand everything that happened. No need to understand, but he feels it. Feel the longest hug from your grandmother. Feel the mother's affection as she adjusts the old lady's blanket. Feel the change in the air in the house, lighter, warmer, more full of love. Because sometimes it is precisely in the strongest bonds that are reborn. Just when everything seems about to be lost, that's where something new is born. And Camilla learned this the hard way, but also the most true. She saw that it was not too late to change. It wasn't too late to ask for forgiveness, to start over. And sometimes the ones who seem most distant are the ones who are most ready to love us. Donna Emilia survived the flames, but more than that, she rekindled an entire family, and that neither will ever be able to erase. What about you? Have you ever experienced something similar? Have you ever judged someone before knowing their true story? Tell us in the comments. Your experience may inspire other hearts. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe to the channel. Here, each story is a reminder that humanity, empathy, and redemption still exist.